Thank you so much, Jim, for this wonderful opportunity to love, to serve, and to give a hurting humanity. I applaud this venue and this forum and everything that you're doing at the Speakers Pathway Coalition. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak life, because we know that one of the most powerful scripture verses that ever influenced my life was John 16:33, that says, "In this world, you will have trouble." And most of us learn that all too commonly as children, when we grow up in a broken world where we see a hurting humanity all around us. And I unfortunately learned the hard way that sometimes you do have to see the depravity of mankind. And I was forced out on the streets as a teenager. And the night that I met the man who intended to rape and kill me, I had this juxtaposition of the heaviness of this stranger on top of me with this overwhelming empathy and compassion and love for a hurting humanity that wanted to know what went wrong in his story. Where was his script hijacked from the lies that he believed about his worth, about how he treated other people, about how he even treated himself? And so I threw up what I called my Hail Mary prayer. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but this whole, "God, if you're real, please make him stop." And immediately he did. And so that moment I knew that in spite of the brokenness of this humanity, that sometimes we do get to see the light, and we realize that there's a God who loves us and has a plan for us. And I realized that night that as I would start to dig deeper into root causes of brokenness and why we hurt each other and why we hurt ourselves, that there would be light and there would be hope in my calling to love the unlovable. So I went on this journey because the secret was, most of the time, the unlovable was me. And so I had to dig deep inside and start to find out what went wrong inside of my heart and my mind and my body, my soul, and my spirit that made me do hurtful things to other people and to hurt myself. So I went on this lifetime journey through professional development, education, nonprofit work with the federal government, earning my master's in human relations, and really understanding root causes of brokenness and finding joy and finding love in the midst of trauma and adversity. So this idea of embracing the suck is really that every one of us has times that really do suck. And we say, is this all I have? Is this really what life is all about? And we get to dig deep, and we get to go to the root of what I developed as this framework that I call Your Best University, where we start asking questions about, why am I here? How did I get to the place where I am today? And we start asking questions about identity and purpose, mission and calling, and things like our vocational resilience. Like, where are we vocationally, spiritually, mentally, physically, socially, financially? And we look at, where am I and where do I want to be? And we help bridge those gaps. So we ask very, very introspective questions of ourselves, and we say, where am I? How did I get here? And then once we start answering those questions, we can start to see a lot of the roots of what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about the world, what we believe about our capacity. And so many of the previous speakers have talked about this idea of really this mindset shift and saying, do I have a fixed mindset or do I have a growth mindset? And right now is an amazing opportunity to have a growth mindset where we say, okay, here's where I am, point A, here's where I want to be, point B, C, D, all the way to Z. And how do I get there? So we ask those questions, and we start digging deep and doing that internal surgery where we ask, why am I here? What is my purpose? Do I even believe that God has a plan and a purpose for my life? And so in that spiritual realm, maybe you don't have the faith that I do, but maybe you have some other grounding that says, maybe it's your physical realm of resilience that says, I believe my body is a temple and I will take care of this body. And this is what anchors me in times of trouble and times of adversity. And so we start asking these questions of, how do you really fortify those walls, those protective walls that keep us safe from the attacks that are coming at us from all different angles, even in the best of times, but absolutely in the worst of times. And so we help people get from those, what are the lies I'm believing, and replacing them with the truth that will anchor us in the storm and will propel us into the overcomer story. Because we know throughout history, whether it's in business, whether it's in biblical stories or any other spiritual truths that we know, that times of trouble is when the growth happens. And so we can think in terms of post-traumatic trauma, or we can think in terms of post-traumatic growth, and really pressing in and embracing the suck and saying, okay, this is what it is. And we really just dig deep and press in and push through the pain. And we like to use the analogy of whether it's your caterpillar coming into being a butterfly, or whether it's literally labor and delivery, where you have to push and you have to go through that pain and you have to overcome the difficult obstacles that stand in the way and say, okay, what is the goal that I attain on the other side? And you keep your eyes firmly focused on that hope that drives you, that propels you into that overcomer story. Because we know that every one of us has scars. Every one of us has battle scars and stories of times that we've overcome adversity in the past. And so we look back to that and we say, what have I overcome in the past? What is my capacity? I think many of your speakers have talked about capacity already. And what is my capacity for overcoming adversities in the past? How do I stand on those promises and press into that truth and ground in the things that I know that are strong, and really fortify those protective walls of resilience? So as we do that, we kind of talked about the identity and the purpose. So purpose is the first element of our framework, where we assess those walls, those protective walls of resilience. So again, spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, vocationally, socially, all of that. And we fortify those walls by asking that questions about purpose. And then we move into connection. How does this community that surrounds me speak life into me? How do they serve as the watchman on the wall who can see the blind spots that I may not even be aware of? And hopefully you're surrounded by people who are speaking life into you right now, not the naysayers who are bringing you down. And we like to say that you got to tune out the voices that are telling you lies and reinforcing negativity, and really choose love and choose joy and choose to be surrounded by positivity. Limiting our influences of negativity, maybe that means a simple practice of, I will watch the news for X number of minutes a day, and then I tune it out. I move on to something that's affirming. I start with gratitude. I count my blessings. I look for the positivity. I look for the hope. I look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because we know that the rainbow always comes after the storm. So that community and the connection, that's our second element of protection and fortifying against the trials of this world, because we know that the reality is we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So if those 5 people are constantly negating the positives and constantly bringing us down spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, vocationally, relationally, all of that, we are going to have a harder time pressing through to that overcomer story of truth and hope and resilience in the face of trauma and adversity. So we may need to minimize time around negative influences. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's family and that's friends. And we have to say, okay, let me really take my thoughts captive and guard my heart, guard what's coming in, so that out of the overflow of our heart, our mouth speaks. And the things that we're feeding our body, just like you are what you eat, you are what is being said to you and about you. That whole sticks and stones things, that's not true. We have to listen to the words of life, the words of hope, the words of truth, and the voice of truth that tells us your scars are going to be stories that will tell a tale of resilience and overcoming adversity. So we covered the first 2, and now the third one is going to be, we've got our purpose, we've got our protection, and now we've got to look at provision. So how are we fortifying those protective walls of resilience so that we can thrive in the times of trauma and adversity? And provision is really about looking at, where am I, again, where do I need to be, and how do I get from here to there? So we had these questions about, how did I get here? What's my purpose? The second question would be, why do I stay? What's keeping me stuck from getting from here to there? And then how do I get there? So we ask these tough questions, but really they're simple questions. They're just tough answers. And we take the complexity out of life's deepest challenges, and we try to demystify that. So we break it down into simple steps, and we say, it is not A to Z in one day. We're not trying to move the mountain overnight. We're doing it baby steps. You know, nobody climbs Mount Everest without ever summiting their first 14er. And I'm saying that because I'm in Colorado. We have all these beautiful mountains called 14ers that are over 14,000 feet. And if I have never summited a basic 14er, there is no way I'm gonna just start with Mount Everest. So we've got to think about, we train our bodies, we train our minds, we train every aspect of all those protective walls of resilience to do the baby steps. Because right now, when times are tough, and we've got all these trials coming at us, attacking us spiritually, financially, vocationally, all of these lies that are telling us, you're not going to make it, you can't do this. We have to think about, how do we fortify? How do we really anchor in on the truth? And so that we can shut out the lies, and we can really step into the fullness of the promises of why we're here. And this is the greatest opportunity of any of our time of history, to be able to say, who am I, and what is the dream that maybe God placed in my heart 20 years ago and I have been scared to act on? Well, guess what? This is the time. This is the time for your creative brilliance, that fearfully and wonderfully knit together in your mother's womb, that gem that only you possess, that thing that only you can do. And believe me when I say, there is a mission and an assignment that only you can do the way that you do it, the creative brilliance that rises up inside of you. This is the time to pivot and say, okay, what do I have to lose? Really, truly, what do I have to lose? Right now, this is the best time of ever in any of our lives to take a chance on opportunity, and to look for the hope in the future, to look at the resilience and look for that light at the end of the tunnel, and look for that rainbow at the end of the storm, because it's coming. Your rainbow's coming, and your promise is coming. And so whatever it is, this is what I do, is my whole framework for LoveJoy CO is helping you replace the lies that you believe, and to step into the fullness of the truth of who God says you are. And even if you don't believe in God, I will be your number one cheerleader, and help to speak life into you, and help to be that watchman on the wall that says, hey, did you see this thing that you've got that nobody else has? And speaking hope and speaking forth a promise that you can do it, that you are an overcomer, and you have an amazing story of overcoming trauma, adversity, and really shining light in the darkness the way that only you can do. So whether you're a mama, whether you've just lost your business, whether you're struggling financially, whether you're not sure your marriage is going to make it, whatever it is, the reality is, I've probably been there. You know, you go from A to Z, and I've probably got a history of something I've done, something that's been done to me, something I've been through and overcome. So I want to speak life to you, because my name, LoveJoy, and my middle name, Possible, nothing is impossible. I want to be your biggest fan and cheerleader. So this is the time for you to rise up and to really propel yourself into that overcomer story of hope and resilience in the face of trauma and adversity, and really embracing that suck and saying, this is going to be the thing that defines me. How I respond to this right now, Charles Swindoll said, life is 90% how you respond to the 10%, that tiny little 10% of the circumstances that most of us have no control over. Do any of us have any control over quarantines, over social distancing, over forced business closures? No, but we have total accountability, total responsibility for how we respond. And so this is my call to action to you, is rise up and dig deep into that creative brilliance that you know has been burning inside of you for probably years, if not decades, and be all that God called you to be, and shine as that creative brilliance just radiates the world around you. So that is my message of hope and inspiration to you today. And I just want to say I love you. I'm praying for you because I believe in each and every one of you. Even if I don't know you, I believe you are an overcomer. And I cannot wait to hear the goodness that comes out of this amazing opportunity for you to be who you're called to be. Thank you so much.